My beloved child, do not scroll away from this moment. Something has been pressing against the silence around you, something your heart may have sensed before your mind could name it. Pause here, because what you are about to hear was not meant to frighten you, but to prepare you. There is a reason these words have reached you now, in this exact season, while questions have been circling inside you. Your soulmate has been carrying something they desperately want you to understand, and the longer they have kept it inside, the heavier it has become. They are not trying to create fear. They are trying to protect something precious before confusion touches it. And what they need to warn you about is connected to a change that has already begun happening quietly around your connection. You have noticed it, even if you have tried to convince yourself otherwise. A shift in energy. A strange distance one moment and an almost overwhelming closeness the next. Perhaps you have wondered why certain thoughts about this person suddenly appear when you are busy doing something completely unrelated. Perhaps you have questioned why memories return with unusual intensity, or why your heart sometimes feels as though it is waiting for a conversation that has not happened yet. There is more moving beneath the surface than you can currently see. Your soulmate has been watching something unfold, and at first they believed they could handle it without involving you. They thought silence would protect you. They believed they could carry the uncertainty alone. But silence has now become the very thing making the situation more complicated. Listen closely, beloved, because this warning is not about danger chasing you. It is about misunderstanding approaching your connection. Someone, somewhere around this situation has formed an incomplete picture. Words have been repeated without the full story. Assumptions have been made. Your soulmate recently became aware that something about you, your intentions, or your connection has been discussed in a way that does not match what they know in their heart. At first they dismissed it. They told themselves it did not matter. They believed truth would naturally reveal itself without confrontation. But then something happened that made them realize they could no longer stay quiet. There was a moment recently when your soulmate heard your name spoken in a conversation they were not expecting to have. The atmosphere changed immediately. They became still. Their attention sharpened. Something was said that made them realize another person may have been observing your connection from the outside and creating conclusions without understanding what exists beneath it. Your soulmate did not react dramatically. They listened. They asked questions. They watched carefully. And the more they heard, the more one truth became impossible to ignore. If they did not speak to you soon, you might eventually hear a distorted version of something that should come directly from them. This is why their heart feels urgent now. Not because everything is falling apart, but because they know timing matters. They do not want another person's interpretation reaching you before their own truth does. They do not want uncertainty becoming a wall between two hearts that have already survived enough silence. And most of all, they do not want you believing something about yourself that simply is not true. There is something deeply personal inside this warning. It has less to do with what others are saying and more to do with what your soulmate finally realized about the way outside voices can affect something they care about. For a long time, they tried to appear unaffected. They told themselves they were strong enough not to care what anyone thought. They said they could keep their emotions separate from other people's opinions. But love has a way of exposing the places where pride pretends to be strength. Your soulmate has been learning this. They have discovered that when your name is involved, they cannot remain as detached as they once believed. When someone questions you, something inside them rises. When someone misunderstands you, they feel an instinct to explain. When someone suggests that your connection is not what they believe it could become, they find themselves defending possibilities they once pretended they were unsure about. That realization frightened them more than they expected, because it forced them to admit something they had been avoiding. You matter to them more deeply than they have allowed themselves to say. And there is another layer. The warning they want to give you is not simply, be careful what you believe. It is more personal than that. They want you to understand that someone close to the situation may try to convince you that your soulmate has changed their mind about you. You may hear something that sounds convincing. You may notice behavior that appears to confirm it. There could be a delay, a quiet period, a strange reaction, or a moment when they seem distant. But what your soulmate desperately wants you to know is that appearances will not tell the full story. Their silence is not automatically rejection. Their hesitation is not automatically indifference. Their distance is not automatically the absence of love. Something has been happening inside them that they have struggled to explain even to themselves. They are being forced to confront choices they postponed for too long. They are beginning to see that avoiding a decision is still a decision, and the consequences of remaining passive are becoming clearer. This is why the energy around them feels unsettled. They are not running from you. In many ways, they are finally running out of places to hide from their own truth. My child, there have been nights when they replayed conversations with you inside their mind. Words you may barely remember have returned to them. A sentence. A look. A moment when you were kinder than they expected. A time when you pulled away because you were tired of uncertainty. They remember more than you realize. They have compared those moments with the things they are hearing now, and that comparison has created a powerful conflict inside them. Part of them wants to stay quiet and let time decide everything. Another part knows that waiting could cost them the very connection they secretly hope will remain. That is where the warning becomes urgent. They have realized you may be closer to emotionally moving forward than they expected. Perhaps you are not consciously planning to leave anything behind. Perhaps you are simply exhausted from wondering. But your energy has changed. You are learning not to chase explanations. You are learning that peace sometimes requires releasing the need to understand every silence. You are becoming stronger in places where uncertainty once controlled you. And whether your soulmate knows the details of that inner transformation or not, they can feel that something about you is no longer waiting in the same way. This has awakened them. There is a fear inside their heart, but not the kind designed to frighten you. It is the ordinary, human fear of realizing that something meaningful cannot be postponed forever. They thought there would always be more time. More time to explain. More time to gather courage. More time to decide what they wanted to say. More time to repair what silence created. But recently, something made them question that assumption. A conversation changed them. Someone asked them a question they could not answer easily. The question was simple. If this person walked away tomorrow, would you regret what you never said? Your soulmate did not respond immediately. That silence told them everything. For the first time, they imagined the possibility that you might genuinely continue your life without waiting for their clarity. They imagined you meeting someone who communicates without games, someone who does not make you question whether you matter, someone who recognizes your heart without needing endless time to decide. And although they want your happiness, the thought forced them to face emotions they had been keeping locked away. They realized they would regret the silence. They would regret letting other voices become louder than their own. They would regret allowing you to believe they never cared. But there is still something they are afraid to tell you. Their warning involves a person whose opinion once carried more influence than it should have. This person does not necessarily dislike you. That is what makes the situation complicated. They may even believe they are protecting your soulmate. They have been offering advice, questioning intentions, reminding your soulmate of old disappointments, and encouraging caution. Some of that advice came from genuine concern. But slowly, caution became suspicion. Suspicion became assumptions. And assumptions began shaping the way your soulmate responded to you. Your soulmate sees this now. They are realizing that some of their confusion was not entirely their own. There were moments they doubted you because someone else planted a question. There were times they delayed reaching out because they were told to wait and see. There were moments they interpreted your silence negatively because another person suggested that you did not care as deeply as they did. At the time, your soulmate believed they were simply being wise. Now they are beginning to understand the difference between wisdom and fear wearing the mask of wisdom. This realization has shaken them. Because when they look back, they can identify moments where they almost reached toward you and then stopped. They remember typing words and deleting them. They remember almost calling. They remember looking at something connected to you and feeling an overwhelming urge to speak. Then a thought entered their mind: what if I am wrong? That single question became a doorway through which doubt repeatedly entered. But now another question is becoming stronger. What if I have been wrong about them? That question changed everything. Your soulmate has started revisiting memories they once interpreted through fear. They are seeing your actions differently. They are remembering times when you remained patient even while confused. They are recalling moments when your kindness asked for nothing in return. They are realizing that some of what they called distance may actually have been self-respect. Some of what they called coldness may have been exhaustion. Some of what they called indifference may have been you protecting a heart that had already waded through too many mixed signals. And with every memory, the truth becomes harder for them to ignore. You were not asking them to be perfect. You were asking them to be honest. You were not demanding a flawless future. You wanted clarity. You were not asking them to choose you out of fear. You wanted them to stop pretending they felt nothing. That is why they need to warn you before another misunderstanding reaches you. They know there may be a moment soon when something they do looks confusing from the outside. A choice they make could be misinterpreted. A conversation with someone could be misunderstood. A period of silence could make you wonder whether they have disappeared emotionally. But behind that silence, something very different may be happening. They are preparing to set a boundary. And the person receiving that boundary may not like it. Your soulmate has begun to understand that they cannot build a meaningful future while allowing everyone around them to vote on what their heart should feel. They cannot keep seeking permission to care. They cannot continue explaining your connection to people who have never lived inside it. There comes a point when love must stop being discussed like a committee decision and start becoming a personal responsibility. They are reaching that point. Soon, someone may notice the change in them. They may become less willing to participate in conversations about you. They may refuse to listen to assumptions. They may suddenly become protective of details they once shared too freely. And when that happens, another person could interpret their boundary as evidence that something dramatic has occurred. But the truth is far quieter. Your soulmate is finally learning to protect the connection instead of constantly analyzing it. There is something beautiful happening beneath all of this, beloved, but it is uncomfortable because growth often begins where old patterns stop working. Your soulmate's old pattern was hesitation. Your old pattern may have been overthinking their hesitation. Their old pattern was allowing fear to delay honesty. Your old pattern may have been searching for hidden meaning in every delay. Now both of you are being invited towards something different. Clarity. Not fantasy. Not chasing. Not emotional guessing. Clarity. And clarity sometimes arrives after everything confusing rises to the surface one final time. This is why I tell you not to react too quickly to what you may hear next. Do not let one sentence define an entire story. Do not allow someone else's interpretation to become your truth without understanding the complete picture. Keep your discernment. Keep your dignity. Keep your heart open without abandoning your boundaries. The purpose of this message is not to tell you to blindly trust another person. It is to remind you that wisdom listens before concluding. Your soulmate is learning this lesson too. There is also something they want to apologize for, though they have not yet found the courage to form the words. They are sorry for allowing uncertainty to make you feel unimportant. They are sorry for the moments when their silence felt like an answer. They are sorry if you ever questioned your worth because they were unable to communicate their own internal struggle. Most importantly, they are beginning to understand that their fear may have placed a burden on you that was never yours to carry. You were never meant to spend your life proving you were worthy of being chosen. And this realization has become impossible for them to ignore. There was a private moment when your soulmate looked at their own behavior and saw something they did not like. They saw how often they expected you to understand feelings they never clearly expressed. They saw how they wanted reassurance while offering uncertainty. They saw how they hoped you would remain emotionally available while they remained emotionally guarded. That mirror was uncomfortable. But it was necessary. Because something powerful happens when a person finally stops blaming circumstances and begins taking responsibility. They change. Not instantly. Not perfectly. But genuinely. And your soulmate is approaching that threshold. Still, one secret remains behind the warning. There is a specific reason they suddenly feel they need to speak sooner rather than later. It began with information they received unexpectedly. At first, they thought it was simply gossip. Then they heard the same idea from another direction. Two different sources. Two different moments. The same suggestion. Someone believes you are preparing to make a major emotional decision. Your soulmate does not know whether it is true. That uncertainty is driving them toward action. They were told that you may be ready to close a chapter, change direction, or allow a new possibility into your life. Whether someone misunderstood something you said, whether they observed your growing confidence, or whether it was simply assumption, your soulmate heard enough to become unsettled. Because suddenly, the future they kept imagining as, someday, felt as though it might belong to someone else. They tried to ignore the feeling. They could not. They distracted themselves. It returned. They told themselves that if you were meant to stay connected, nothing would change. But another voice inside them answered, you cannot expect someone to wait for words you refuse to say. That truth pierced through every excuse. And this is where the story becomes more intense. Your soulmate has already begun forming the conversation they want to have with you. They know how they want to start. They know what they need to admit. They even know one truth they have never spoken to anyone clearly before. But there is one part they are still afraid to reveal because it could change the way you understand everything that has happened between you. They are afraid you will ask, why didn't you tell me sooner? And they do not yet know how to answer without exposing a deeply vulnerable part of themselves. Because the truth is, they were not only afraid of losing you. They were afraid of being fully seen by you. You reached emotional places in them they were accustomed to hiding. Your presence awakened desires they had disciplined themselves not to name. You made them imagine a future while they were still pretending they did not care about one. And the deeper the connection felt, the more they tried to control it. They believed control would keep them safe. Instead, control created distance. Now they can see it. And the warning they want to give you is becoming inseparable from a confession. They want to tell you, please do not believe everything you may hear about why I pulled away. Because there is a reason. A real reason. One they have been hiding. It has nothing to do with you being unworthy. It has nothing to do with them finding someone better. It has nothing to do with the absence of feelings. The truth is almost the opposite. They pulled back because something about the intensity of what they felt forced them to confront a wound from their past that they believed they had already overcome. And someone close to them knew about that wound. That person used it, perhaps unintentionally, to convince your soulmate that history might repeat itself. That is why they became cautious. That is why they questioned moments that once felt natural. That is why they sometimes moved closer and then suddenly withdrew. They were not always reacting to you. Sometimes they were reacting to a memory. And you did not know it. How could you? They never told you. But now they are beginning to understand that you cannot build trust with someone while asking them to fight shadows they cannot see. So they are preparing to name the shadow. And once they do, everything may finally make sense. There is one final detail heaven wants you to recognize before this part closes. Your soulmate recently made a decision in private. No announcement. No dramatic promise. No public declaration. Just a quiet decision inside themselves. They decided that before they let fear, rumor, or another person's opinion determine what happens next, they need to hear the truth directly from you. And they need you to hear the truth directly from them. That means the next movement in this story may not look like the movements that came before. It may be more direct, more vulnerable, more emotionally honest. But there is still one obstacle standing between intention and action. A message has not yet been sent. A truth has not yet been spoken. A boundary has not yet been completed. And the person your soulmate is preparing to confront has no idea what is coming. Because your soulmate recently discovered something about the advice they were given, something that made them question an entire chain of decisions. They went back through old conversations. They remembered exact words. They connected details that once seemed unrelated. And when the pattern finally became visible, they sat in silence. One thought kept repeating in their mind. If I had known this sooner, I would have handled Eve.